She wasn't supposed to be noticed, just another maintenance worker, invisible in the hierarchy of military power. When the commander threw a toilet brush at her face, laughter filled the room until her sleeve slid back. The black tattoo silenced everything, a viper wrapped around a dagger. Someone whispered, "That's a Black Mamba mark." No one spoke after that. No one dared. She picked up the brush and continued cleaning, as if nothing had happened, but everyone present knew what they had just witnessed. Some protect us from enemies we see. Others protect us from enemies we never knew existed. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If this story speaks to you, I invite you to subscribe for more untold tales of strength hiding in plain sight. The morning sun cast harsh shadows across Forward Operating Base Obsidian, a remote outpost of concrete and steel nestled against barren mountains. Zephyrine Mariah kept her head down as she methodically mopped the briefing room floor, moving around the perimeter as officers stood at attention for the morning briefing. Her oversized uniform concealed her frame, dark hair pulled back in a severe bun that revealed nothing of the woman beneath. Colonel Alaric Dunwell's voice cut through the air, commanding and sharp. "The Tartarus supply convoy must depart at 0600 tomorrow without fail. Our forward units are counting on these provisions." He slapped his tablet against his palm for emphasis. "Where is the final manifest, Private Orloff?" Young Private Lysithia. Orloff paled visibly under the colonel's intense gaze. "Sir, I cannot locate the documentation. I had it on my desk last night, but this morning it was gone." "You had one job, Private." Dunwell's face reddened as his voice elevated. "One simple task. Are you telling me you misplaced critical supply documents?" The gathered officers shifted uncomfortably as Dunwell's tirade continued. Zeph kept mopping, her movements precise and economical. Yet her eyes flickered briefly toward Lieutenant Sorrel Nash. The lieutenant stood slightly apart from the others, his posture perfect, his expression one of practiced concern. As Dunwell berated the young private, Nash discreetly slid a folded document into his breast pocket. Zeph's movements slowed imperceptibly, her gaze sharpening for just a moment before returning to her practiced blankness. It was enough. Nash caught her looking. His eyes narrowed as he broke away from the group, approaching her with deliberate steps. "You," he called, pointing at Zeph. "The restrooms need attention, now." "Sir, that is scheduled for the afternoon rotation," Private Orloff interjected, seemingly eager to redirect attention. "Did I ask for your input, Private?" Nash snapped. "Perhaps you should focus on finding that manifest instead of managing the cleaning crew." Zeph placed her mop in the bucket without comment or complaint. As she passed Nash, he whispered, "Keep your eyes where they belong, maintenance." She gave no indication she had heard him, simply continued toward the door, her back straight despite the deliberate humiliation. As she exited, she heard Dunwell resume his briefing, his voice fading as she moved down the corridor. Hours later, Zeph knelt beside a toilet in the officer's restroom, scrubbing methodically during what should have been her break period. The harsh chemical smell filled the air, but her expression remained neutral, as if she had cleaned 1,000 toilets before, and would clean 1,000 more. Through the thin walls of the restroom, she could hear voices in the adjacent corridor. Nash and Dunwell, their tones hushed but clear enough to someone trained to listen. "Operation Cottonmouth is at risk," Dunwell muttered. "Those shipments cannot be traced back to us. The Oversight Committee is already asking questions." "The adjustments to the inventory records are already made," Nash replied, his voice smoother, more confident. "No one checks the maintenance logs against actual shipments. The discrepancies are buried in paperwork no one will ever review." The bathroom door swung open abruptly. Both men froze in the doorway, seeing Zeph kneeling beside the toilet, brush in hand. "How long have you been in here?" Dunwell demanded, his hand instinctively moving to rest on his sidearm. Zeph kept her eyes down, focused on the porcelain. "Just cleaning, sir." Nash stepped closer, his boots stopping inches from her cleaning supplies. "I have noticed you are always around when sensitive matters are discussed. Quite the coincidence." "She is just a cleaner," Dunwell said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "Perhaps," Nash replied, circling Zeph like a predator. "But I have seen her near the communications building after hours, and the armory." Other personnel began gathering in the doorway, drawn by the rising voices and unusual confrontation. Private Orloff hovered at the back, her expression tense, hands clasped tightly behind her back. What exactly did you hear? Dunwell stepped forward, looming over Zeph's kneeling form. She continued cleaning, silent. I am speaking to you. Dunwell's voice rose sharply. His boot connected with her bucket, sending dirty water across the tiled floor. Look at me when I am talking to you. Zeph remained kneeling, eyes forward, expression unchanged as water soaked into her uniform pants. Her stillness seemed to infuriate Dunwell further. This is what happens, Nash announced to the gathering crowd, when people forget their place in the hierarchy, when they think cleaning gives them access to matters beyond their clearance. Laughter rippled through the onlookers, nervous at first, then gaining confidence. Zeph was nobody, just maintenance, background noise in their important military lives. Dunwell grabbed the toilet brush from Zeph's hand. Maybe cleaning is not your true calling. Maybe you are better suited for intelligence work. Is that it? Gathering secrets while emptying trash cans? The laughter grew louder. Let us test your reflexes, Dunwell said, weighing the brush in his hand. A good spy needs quick reactions. Without warning, he hurled the brush directly at Zeph's face. It struck her cheek with a wet slap. Water and worse dripped down her impassive face as jeers and laughter filled the room. She didn't flinch, didn't react, just remained kneeling, water dripping from her chin onto her soaked uniform. The laughter grew louder, officers nudging each other, pointing at the humiliated maintenance worker. Only Private Orlov remained stone-faced, her eyes darting between Zeph and the officers with something like dread. The laughter echoed off tile walls as Zeph remained perfectly still. Then, with deliberate slowness, she reached down for the fallen brush. Her sleeve slid back, black ink against pale skin. A viper wrapped around a dagger. Intricate, unmistakable. The laughter died instantly. Colonel Dunwell's face drained of color. Lieutenant Nash took an involuntary step backward, knocking over a trash can with a crash that seemed deafening in the sudden silence. That's a Black Mamba mark, Private Orlov whispered from the doorway. A senior officer in the back touched his own concealed tattoo, eyes widening in recognition. Others simply stared, confusion giving way to dawning realization, and, in some cases, barely concealed fear. For the first time, Zeph raised her gaze to meet Dunwell's. Something in her posture shifted, subtle but profound. No longer submissive, but perfectly balanced. A predator who had been hiding in plain sight. Without breaking eye contact, she slowly removed a pristine white handkerchief from her pocket. With military precision, she wiped her face, folded the cloth into a perfect square, and placed it in Dunwell's breast pocket. Then she picked up the brush and resumed cleaning. Dismissed, Dunwell managed, his voice barely audible. No one moved. I said dismissed, he barked, and personnel scattered like startled birds. Nash lingered, his face a mask of confusion and growing alarm. Colonel, I don't understand. What does that mark mean? Dunwell gripped Nash's arm, pulling him into the corridor. Not here, he hissed. Not now. As they departed, Zeph continued cleaning, as if nothing had happened, as if the entire confrontation had been meaningless. Only the handkerchief in Dunwell's pocket suggested anything had changed at all. Private Orlov remained in the doorway, her earlier nervousness replaced by something else. Respect, perhaps, or awe. Ma'am, she said quietly, can I assist you? Zeph glanced up. For the briefest moment, something like amusement flickered in her eyes. Find me a fresh bucket, Private. This floor will not clean itself. Orlov hurried away, leaving Zeph alone with the silence that had replaced the mockery. She dipped her brush back into what remained of the cleaning solution and continued scrubbing, her movements as economical and precise as they had always been. But something had changed. The sleeve of her uniform remained pushed back, the black tattoo clearly visible now. She made no effort to conceal it any longer. In the corridor, whispers spread through the base. By evening, everyone would know what had happened in the officer's restroom. Everyone would know what the Black Mamba mark meant. And everyone would reassess everything they thought they knew about the quiet woman who had cleaned their spaces and emptied their trash for the past 3 years. Zeph allowed herself the smallest of smiles as she worked. The mission had entered a new phase, ahead of schedule, but perhaps more effective for it. Sometimes being seen was more valuable than remaining hidden. The sun was setting by the time Zeph finished cleaning the restroom. She gathered her supplies methodically, checked the space one final time, and stepped into the corridor. It was empty now, the earlier crowd of jeering officers nowhere to be seen. Private Orloff appeared at the far end, approaching with purpose. "Major," she said quietly when she was certain they were alone, "Commander Everhart requests your presence." Zeph nodded. "Time to move to the next phase, then." "Was this part of the plan?" Orlov asked, falling into step beside her. "The tattoo reveal?" "Plans adapt to circumstances," Zeph replied. Her voice was different now, more confident, authoritative, nothing like the near-silent maintenance worker she had portrayed for 3 years. Nash made a mistake with the manifest. He got careless. Sometimes you have to accelerate when opportunity presents itself. They walked in silence through corridors that seemed different now. Personnel who had previously ignored Zeph now pressed themselves against walls as she passed. Officers who had mocked her that very morning now stared straight ahead, rigid and uncomfortable. The Black Mamba mark had changed everything without a single word being spoken. "Commander Everhart has confined Nash and Dunwell to quarters," Orloff reported. "The military police are standing guard." "Good," Zeph said. "Have the communications logs been secured?" "Yes, Major. And the shipping manifests from the last 3 months." Zeph nodded, satisfied. 3 years, she murmured, almost to herself. 3 years of cleaning toilets and emptying trash to find this network. "Was it worth it?" Orlov asked quietly. "The humiliation? Being treated like you were nothing?" For a moment, Zeph was silent, considering the question. Then she stopped, turning to face the younger woman. "Ego is the enemy of excellence, Lysithea. Remember that. The mission is what matters, not how others perceive you while accomplishing it." Orlov nodded, though uncertainty lingered in her eyes. "Yes, Major." "Come," Zeph said, resuming her stride toward the commander's office. "It is time to show Nash and Dunwell exactly who has been watching them all this time." Behind them, a new maintenance worker appeared, pushing a cleaning cart into the now spotless restroom. Her movements were economical, her eyes observant, her uniform unremarkable. Just another invisible person in a world that rarely looked twice at those who served. Base Commander Meridian Everhart stood like a statue behind her desk, watching the surveillance footage for the 3rd time. The screen showed Colonel Dunwell throwing the toilet brush, the reveal of the tattoo, the immediate shift in the room's atmosphere. Her weathered face revealed nothing, but her fingers tapped a precise rhythm on the polished surface of her desk. Across from her sat Zephyrine Mariah, now dressed in civilian clothes that fit her properly. The baggy maintenance uniform was gone, replaced by tactical pants and a short-sleeved shirt that made no attempt to hide the Black Mamba tattoo coiling around her forearm. Her posture was different, her presence commanding. The hunched, invisible cleaner had vanished as completely as a shed skin. Colonel Dunwell and Lieutenant Nash stood at rigid attention before the commander's desk, flanked by military police. Their faces were pale, their expressions oscillating between confusion and thinly veiled fear. "Gentlemen," Commander Everhart finally spoke, her voice level and cool, "do you know what happens when you throw toilet brushes at ghosts?" Neither man answered. "Sometimes," she continued, "the ghosts throw back." She tapped a key, freezing the footage on the image of Zeph placing the folded handkerchief in Dunwell's pocket. "Major Mariah, your report, please." Nash's jaw dropped at the rank. Dunwell's face, already pale, went completely white. "Major?" he whispered. Zeph's voice, when she spoke, bore no resemblance to the near-silent maintenance worker they had known. It was clear, authoritative, and precise. Operation Cottonmouth was designed to divert military hardware to terrorist cells in exchange for intelligence and regional influence. Colonel Dunwell authorized the diversions. Lieutenant Nash executed the paperwork and managed the financial transactions through a series of offshore accounts. 12 shipments over 3 years, totaling approximately $30 million in hardware. She placed a flash drive on the desk. Complete records, including account numbers and communications with their contacts in the Ansar Brigade. "That is absurd," Dunwell protested, his earlier fear giving way to desperation. "She has been going through our trash, making wild connections, inventing conspiracies." "Major Mariah," Commander Everhart interrupted, "has been operating under my direct authority for 3 years, Colonel. Her assignment was to identify who was selling American weapons to our enemies after we received intelligence suggesting the supply chain had been compromised at a high level. A janitor? Nash laughed, the sound hollow and forced. You expect us to believe this was some elaborate sting operation? That maintenance staff are now conducting intelligence operations? Not a janitor, Everhart corrected. One of only 7 active Black Mamba operatives, women who officially died in service but continue to work in the shadows. The most classified special operations unit in our military. She opened a file. Major Zephyrine Mariah, 3 Purple Hearts, 2 Silver Stars. Officially killed in action during a hostage rescue in 2022. And you placed her here as, what, maintenance? Dunwell's voice cracked with disbelief. Where better to hide someone you want to see everything? Zeph asked quietly. The invisible woman who cleans your office while you make phone calls, who empties your trash with classified notes you think no one will bother to read, who watches and listens while being beneath your notice. She leaned forward slightly. Your first mistake was believing that uniforms define capability. Your second was creating a supply chain of missing weapons that led straight back to your personal accounts. This is all circumstantial, Nash insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. You cannot prove any of this. Zeph lifted an eyebrow. Every room on this base has been monitored for the past 18 months, including your private quarters, including the secure communications room you accessed after hours 27 times, including the meetings with your contact in the civilian sector. Dunwell's shoulders slumped as the full weight of their situation became clear. Commander Everhart stood, her presence filling the room despite her modest height. Colonel Alaric Dunwell, Lieutenant Sorrel Nash, you are hereby charged with treason, conspiracy, and violation of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. MPs, remove them. As the military police escorted them from the office, Nash looked back at Zeph with newfound fear. Who are you people? Zeph did not answer. She did not need to. After the door closed, Commander Everhart sank back into her chair. 3 years, she said. 3 years undercover as maintenance staff. That might be a record, even for the Mambas. The position provided optimal access, Zeph replied, and people reveal the most when they think no one is watching. Still, Everhart picked up the flash drive, weighing it in her palm. To endure that level of disrespect, day after day. Respect is not required for mission success, Commander. No, but human decency should be, Everhart's voice hardened. The footage I watched today was inexcusable, regardless of who you are. Zeph shrugged, a casual gesture at odds with her military bearing. People show you who they are when they think there are no consequences. That information is valuable. And now? Now they face consequences. Zeph stood. The investigation is complete. My mission here is finished. You could stay, Everhart suggested. There is a place for you on my staff, in an official capacity. No more cleaning toilets. Zeph smiled, a small private expression. I believe I have other assignments waiting. Always, Everhart agreed. The paperwork will be processed by morning. Private Orloff performed admirably as your handler. I am recommending her for advanced training. She has potential, Zeph acknowledged, and integrity. Both are rare. The commander nodded, then extended her hand. It has been an honor, Major, even if most of my base never knew you were here. Zeph shook the offered hand. The best operations are the ones no one ever knows about, Commander. 5 years earlier, Zeph had sat in a classified facility deep underground. The room was stark, illuminated by harsh fluorescent lights that reflected off concrete walls. Across a metal table sat a general with hard eyes and a classified folder. Operative Mariah, you understand what accepting this mark means? The general's voice was solemn. The world believes you died in Kandahar last month. Your family has been told. Your friends. Everyone. Zeph nodded, sleeve rolled up, arm extended. I understand, sir. Black Mambas operate in absolute secrecy. You will work where others cannot. See what others miss. You will be invisible until you choose not to be. The general studied her face for any sign of hesitation. Once you accept this assignment, Zephyrine Mariah ceases to exist. You become a ghost. The tattoo needle buzzed as the specialist prepared the ink. The most dangerous predator, the general continued. Is the one you have been trained to overlook, Zeph finished. The needle touched her skin, marking her with an identity that would remain hidden until the moment she needed it most. Dawn painted the mountains gold as Zeph packed her few belongings into a nondescript sedan. The air was cool, crisp with the promise of a hot day to follow. Base personnel moved with purpose around her, some deliberately averting their eyes, others stealing glances at the woman who had been invisible among them for so long. Private Orloff approached, a sealed envelope in her hand. Major, Commander Everhart wanted to give these to you personally, but she is handling the fallout from yesterday. Zeph took the envelope and tucked it away unopened. Thank you, Private. New assignment? New identity, Zeph corrected. New mission. Orlov hesitated, then asked the question that had clearly been troubling her. I do not understand. Why did you never say something? Even when he threw that brush in your face, you could have ended it all months ago. Zeph leaned against her car, considering how to explain. The mission succeeds when no one sees you coming. The moment they knew who I was, certain doors closed forever. I needed to know not just what Dunwell and Nash were doing, but who they were working with outside the base. But to endure that for so long, Orlov shook her head. Commander Everhart mentioned medals, recognition, a formal position at Central Command. Some operate in the light, Zeph replied. Others in shadow. I made my choice long ago. In the distance, a new maintenance worker passed through the gate checkpoint. Zeph observed her movements, recognizing the deliberate economy of motion, the watchful eyes that missed nothing while appearing to see nothing. There are more of you, are not there? Orlov whispered. Here and elsewhere. Zeph simply smiled. Take care of yourself, Lysithia. You have potential. She opened the car door. Remember what I told you. Ego is the enemy of excellence, Orlov recited. And the mission is what matters, Zeph added, not how others perceive you while accomplishing it. As she drove away from Forward Operating Base Obsidian, Zeph caught her reflection in the rearview mirror. She pulled the tie from her severe bun, letting her hair fall loose. A transformation was already beginning, the maintenance worker receding, someone new emerging. The base diminished behind her, its concrete walls and chain-link fences shrinking until they disappeared entirely. Ahead lay open road and another role to play, another identity to assume, another mission that would require her to become invisible once more. Her phone buzzed with a secure message, new coordinates, new assignment parameters. The Black Mamba was being deployed again, somewhere people would look through her, past her, around her, without ever truly seeing her, just as she preferred. Across the country, in bases and facilities both military and civilian, other women moved through their daily routines. A bartender at an officers' club, quietly observing while pouring drinks. A file clerk in a Pentagon basement, noting who accessed classified materials. A driver waiting patiently outside high-level meetings. Each revealed, for just a moment when no one was watching, a glimpse of the same tattoo. The viper coiled around the dagger, the mark of those who had officially ceased to exist, but continued to serve in the spaces between visibility and shadow. They were the watchers, the listeners, the ones who moved through the world unnoticed until the moment they chose to be seen. They were the Black Mambas, women who had given up their names, their pasts, and their recognition to become the most effective weapon in the arsenal, invisible until they chose not to be. The car climbed into the mountains, leaving the desert behind. Zeph glanced at the sealed envelope on the passenger seat. Inside would be a new name, a new history, a new role to play. The details of her next disappearing act. She smiled. Soon she would become someone else, somewhere else, someone overlooked, underestimated, invisible in the hierarchy of power and importance. And she would watch and listen and wait for the moment when the mission required her to reveal who and what she truly was. Just as she had done when a toilet brush struck her face and laughter filled a room. Just as she would do again and again for as long as the mission required. 6 months later, in a dimly lit officers' club just outside Fort Garrison, a bartender named Marlowe polished glasses with methodical precision. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, her movements economical as she arranged bottles and wiped surfaces. The brass fixtures gleamed under the subdued lighting, reflecting the face of a woman few customers truly saw. Major General Victor Hargrove occupied his usual corner table, surrounded by aides and subordinates who laughed too loudly at his jokes and nodded too eagerly at his pronouncements. Their drinks never emptied, Marlowe ensuring each glass was refreshed before it reached halfway. "Another round for the general's table," a server called out. Marlowe nodded, preparing the drinks with practiced efficiency. 4 whiskeys, neat, 1 gin and tonic, 1 club soda with lime for the designated driver. As she arranged the glasses on a tray, she heard snippets of conversation floating across the room. "Operation Copperhead begins next week," the general announced, his voice pitched low, but carrying to trained ears. "The supply chain has been restored since that unfortunate business at Obsidian." "What about the investigation, sir?" a younger officer asked. The general waved a dismissive hand. "Ancient history. Dunwell and Nash were convenient scapegoats. The operation continues under new management." Marlowe delivered the drinks personally, her eyes downcast, her presence barely registered as she placed each glass precisely before its recipient. The conversation paused momentarily, then resumed as if she had never been there at all. "The new contact is already in place," the general continued, more careful than Dunwell ever was. "The materials are being diverted through 3 separate checkpoints now. And the Oversight Committee has been handled. Senator Morrison received a substantial donation to his re-election campaign. He will not be asking difficult questions." Marlowe returned to the bar, her expression unchanged. Only the slightest tension in her shoulders suggested she had heard anything at all. She resumed polishing glasses, the movements automatic as her mind processed the information. When the general's party departed 2 hours later, Marlowe cleaned their table herself. Under the empty glass that had held the general's whiskey, she found a substantial tip and a business card with a phone number written on the back. She pocketed both without expression. In the alley behind the officers' club, Marlowe pulled out a secure phone and dialed a number from memory. "Verification," a voice answered. "Echo Sierra 794, she responded. "Proceed." "Cottonmouth has evolved into Copperhead. Hargrove is the new handler. Morrison is compromised. Operation commences next week." "Understood. Continue monitoring. Backup is in place when needed." The call ended. Marlowe slipped the phone back into her pocket and glanced at her watch. Her shift ended in 20 minutes. She would return to her small apartment, document everything she had heard, and prepare for tomorrow. Another day of being invisible, of being the woman who poured drinks and wiped tables and heard things she was not meant to hear. Just as Zephyrine Mariah had done at Forward Operating Base Obsidian. 3 days later, in a Pentagon office filled with filing cabinets and the hum of fluorescent lights, a clerk named Denisa processed paperwork with quiet efficiency. Her desk was positioned near the door of the secure document room, allowing her to note everyone who entered and exited. Colonel Raymond Ellis approached, authorization badge displayed prominently. "Good morning," he greeted her with the casual charm he reserved for support staff. "I need to access the Obsidian files." Denisa checked his clearance against the system. "Of course, Colonel. Please sign here." As he scrawled his signature, she noted the time and file request in her log. Standard procedure, nothing that would raise suspicion. "Thank you, Denisa," he said, one of the few officers who bothered to read her name badge. "Always efficient." She offered a professional smile as he entered the secure room. Once the door closed, she sent a brief text message, then resumed her filing as if nothing had happened. Inside the secure room, Colonel Ellis accessed the Obsidian investigation files, downloading specific documents onto an encrypted drive. He moved with purpose, familiar with the filing system and security protocols. What he did not notice was the slight discoloration of the ceiling tile above the main server, where a micro camera recorded his every action. When he emerged 15 minutes later, Denisa was still at her desk, still processing paperwork with the same quiet efficiency. "All set, Colonel?" she asked. "Yes, thank you," he replied, already focused on his next task. As he walked away, Denisa made a final notation in her log. Her sleeve rode up slightly, revealing the edge of a black tattoo. She adjusted her cuff immediately, the mark disappearing as quickly as it had been exposed. That evening, in an apartment across the city, Denisa compiled her report. Colonel Ellis had accessed classified files related to Operation Cottonmouth, focusing specifically on the supply routes and offshore accounts. He had copied financial data that had not been included in the official investigation summary. She encrypted the information and sent it through secure channels, then deleted all traces of the transmission. Tomorrow, she would return to her desk, continue filing paperwork, and watch who accessed what. The perfect position for gathering intelligence that no one would suspect was being gathered. The wheels were in motion. The Black Mambas were converging. 1 week later, at a private airfield outside Washington, D.C., Major General Hargrove boarded a small jet with Colonel Ellis and 2 security personnel. Their conversation was guarded, references oblique. "The first shipment is en route," Ellis reported. "The manifest shows agricultural equipment." "And the actual contents?" Hargrove asked. "Javelin missile systems, 20 units." Hargrove nodded, satisfied. "Our friends will be pleased. The senator has ensured no questions will be asked about the destination." What they did not notice was the woman checking pre-flight systems in the cockpit. Captain Amara Khatri ran through her checklist with professional focus, her uniform impeccable, her presence a given rather than noted. Another invisible woman in a world of important men. As the jet reached cruising altitude, Captain Khatri engaged the autopilot and made a brief adjustment to the air circulation system. Within minutes, the cabin air carried a colorless, odorless compound that induced deep sleep in all passengers. She secured the cockpit door, then contacted ground control. "Sierra Actual, this is Black Snake, package secured, 4 passengers sedated, arriving at alternate coordinates in approximately 90 minutes. Confirmed, Black Snake, reception team standing by." The jet changed course, banking gently toward a military installation far from its original destination. In the cabin, Hargrove and Ellis slept deeply, unaware that their operation had been compromised from the very beginning. When they awoke, they found themselves in a secure holding facility, monitored by expressionless military police. The walls were bare concrete, the lighting harsh and unforgiving. The door opened and a woman entered, not Marlowe the bartender, or Denisa the clerk, or Captain Khatri the pilot, but Commander Meridian Everhart. Behind her walked another woman, whose face was familiar to both men, though neither could immediately place it. "Gentlemen," Commander Everhart began, "I believe you already know Major Mariah." Recognition dawned in their eyes. The maintenance worker from Forward Operating Base Obsidian, the woman with the Black Mamba tattoo, who had exposed Dunwell and Nash. Zephyrine Mariah stood with perfect military posture, her expression neutral as she surveyed the men before her. "General Hargrove, Colonel Ellis, we have been expecting you." "What is the meaning of this?" Hargrove demanded, his authority reflexive even in captivity. "Operation Copperhead has been terminated," Everhart stated, "along with Cottonmouth and every other serpent in your little menagerie." "You have no evidence," Ellis insisted. "No proof of any wrongdoing." Zeph stepped forward, placing a file on the table between them. "Every conversation at the officers' club was recorded. Every file you accessed was logged. Every communication with your overseas contacts was intercepted. We have been watching you for months, gentlemen, ever since Dunwell implicated you in exchange for leniency." "Impossible," Hargrove whispered. "No," Zeph corrected. "Invisible. There is a difference." She opened the file, revealing photographs of Hargrove meeting with known arms dealers, transcripts of conversations with Senator Morrison, bank records showing millions flowing through shell corporations. "You see, General, when Dunwell and Nash were apprehended, we knew they were not the top of the chain. They were soldiers following orders. We needed to find who was giving those orders. So we set a trap," Everhart continued. "We let information about the investigation leak. We watched to see who took interest, who accessed the files, who reached out to re-establish the supply chain. And you walked right into it," Zeph concluded, "because you never noticed the women serving your drinks, filing your paperwork, flying your planes, the invisible ones who see everything." Hargrove's face contorted with rage and disbelief. "This is absurd. A conspiracy of, what? Women pretending to be support staff? Who would believe such a thing?" "That," Zeph replied calmly, "is precisely why it works." She rolled up her sleeve, revealing the Black Mamba tattoo. "7 of us, General. 7 ghosts who officially died in service but continue to work in the shadows. We are assigned to the cases no one else can crack. The operation's too sensitive for traditional intelligence." "And you never saw us coming," Everhart added, "because you were trained to overlook us." As the implication sank in, Hargrove's shoulders slumped, Ellis stared at the evidence before him, the careful documentation of every illicit transaction, every illegal order, every betrayal of the uniform they wore. "Senator Morrison," Ellis asked. "Is being handled as we speak," Everhart assured him. By another operative he never noticed. The military police stepped forward to escort the prisoners to more permanent accommodations. As they were led away, Hargrove looked back at Zeph with a mixture of anger and reluctant respect. "How many more of you are there?" he asked. Zeph simply smiled. The question itself revealed how little he understood. The strength of the Black Mambas was not in their number, but in their invisibility, in the fact that men like Hargrove would never see them until it was too late. 1 month later, Zephyrine Mariah stood at the edge of a different military base, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Her hair was different now. Her identity changed once more. In her hand, she held new orders, a new assignment, a new role to play. Private Lysithea Orloff approached, her uniform now bearing the insignia of a specialist. "Major," she greeted Zeph. "Or should I use your new name?" "Better not," Zeph advised. "As far as anyone needs to know, we have never met." Orloff nodded her understanding. "The training program begins next week. Commander Everhart says I have potential." "You do," Zeph agreed. "You see what others miss, that cannot be taught." "Will I become one of you?" Orloff asked, her voice hushed despite the empty surroundings. "A Black Mamba?" Zeph considered the young woman before her. "That decision comes later. For now, learn, watch, listen. The most valuable intelligence comes from the places people think do not matter." She rolled down her sleeve, covering the tattoo that had become both a warning and a promise. "Remember what I told you." "Ego is the enemy of excellence," Orlov recited, "and the most dangerous predator is the one you have been trained to overlook," Zeph finished. They parted without further words. Zeph climbed into her vehicle and drove toward her next assignment, her next disappearance. Soon she would be someone else, somewhere else, another invisible woman in a world that rarely looked twice at those who served. Across the country, in bases and embassies and government buildings, other women went about their duties. A receptionist making note of who visited a certain senator, a nurse observing high-ranking patients in a military hospital, a technician installing security systems with additional features no one had requested. Each bore the same mark, hidden beneath clothing or concealed by strategic positioning. Each gathered intelligence no one knew was being gathered. Each waited for the moment when being seen would serve the mission better than remaining invisible. They were the watchers, the listeners, the ones who moved through the world unnoticed until the moment they chose to be noticed. They were the Black Mambas, the ghosts who served in plain sight. And they were always watching,